Thank you all for joining us today. It's really great to have you here. And a special thank you to Kristen Wells from Mass CPA and for agreeing to give us some tips on how to make our communities profitable. After graduating from the University of New Hampshire, its hospitality management program, Kristen spent the first 6 years of her career working in event sales at various hotels before joining Mass CPA in 2016. And now she's their Senior Director of Business Development and Events, and she oversees sponsorship, advertising, and corporate partnerships, as well as plans all of the Society's events. So thank you very much, Kristen, for speaking to us today, and over to you.
Thank you, Kate. I appreciate it. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. As Kate said, my name is Kristen Wells, and I'm the Senior Director of Business Development and Events at Mass CPAs. Just to give you a little bit of background, so we are an association of 11,000 accountants. The majority of those CPAs work in public accounting firms. And then we have a handful who work in private industry, and then some in government and academics as well. And we launched our online community in July of 2016, and we were able to start turning a profit in about mid-2017. So it's about within a year or so that we were able to do that. So I have 5 tips for you today that hopefully will work as you're thinking about starting advertising programs with your communities. So let's see if I can. Let's see. Sorry, my slides don't want to advance here. All right. So the first thing is to really think about when you should launch your advertising program and being deliberate with that. So you want to think about how long your community has been active. Did you just launch, a month ago, or are your users really engaging with the site and they're comfortable with it at this point? Because that will translate to analytical data, which you'll need as you're having these sales conversations. And I'll get more into depth on that in the next slide, but it's probably the most important thing when you're thinking about how to sell this ad space. You also want to think about, is there a time of year that the site is used more or less? So for example, when we launched our site, we sort of assumed that it would be quieter during tax season. So during, February, March, and April. We were surprised to find that it was actually the complete opposite. So our CPA firms really utilize our—
Rest if you want, Milo. I cannot play with you. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I don't know if you could hear that, but where was I? Oh, so we assumed that during tax season that site would, be sort of quiet, and it was actually the opposite. Our site is used a lot as a resource during that busy time of year. So, launching in July and August when a lot of members are on vacation and the site is a little quieter probably wouldn't have made sense from an advertising perspective. We wanted to launch sort of during a busier time. So as I said earlier, we launched our community in July of 2016, and we had our first ad posted in December. So sort of, heading right into that busy time when we're kind of starting to ramp up. So it was good from a timing perspective for sure. The other thing you want to think about is, what are your existing advertisers saying? So are they looking for more opportunities, more creative ways to engage with your members? Do you think there's some space with their marketing spend, or are they are their budgets tapped out? If the pandemic really hit your clients, now might not be the best time to pitch something new to them. You might want to wait a few months. So just taking all of that into account when thinking about when you should start your program. The next thing is focusing on analytics. And like I said, this is, a huge part, I think, of what made our community successful. So you might be asking me, how can you gather click rates and all of that when you don't have advertisers yet? So there's a few things we did to combat this and boost that data that we could use to sell. So the first thing we did was we started using the ad space to promote our own events and programs. So whether it was conferences or seminars, even some membership initiatives, and that was a means to not just make those programs more successful by adding promotions, but that whole time we were collecting click rates on the back end. So that was really helpful and sort of served two purposes. The other thing that we did was we offered complimentary trial ads to our corporate partners. So we have 10 companies that we give the designation of corporate partner to, and they're really our biggest supporters in terms of sponsorship and advertising. And so I went to them and said, we have this new member benefit. I would love to give you the first opportunity to take advantage of these ad spots. So I gave them, I can't remember if it was 1 month or 2 months complimentary on the site. Again, serving two purposes, because we were gathering data to be able to use in terms of traffic and click rates and whatnot. But it was also, nice to sort of give them an added benefit for all of their support. And a lot of them actually decided to pay to continue their ad after the trial ended. So it also gave us a customer base right from the beginning, from the community standpoint. The other thing is, if it is appropriate and makes sense, you can sell to the actual community members. So we're lucky we have 2 graphic designers on staff. And so they created banner ads that said your ad here, with a call to action to reach out to me. So just to give you an example, I mentioned earlier that we have some members who work in academics. So they might be a CPA who is a faculty member at a university. So they use the site as a CPA and as a member, but they want to advertise to our young professional members who might enroll in their graduate programs. So as the faculty member, for example, is scrolling through the site and the discussion threads, they'll see this your ad here artwork, and it kind of gets them thinking about doing it themselves. And that's just one example. We also have CPA firms who might want to advertise to other CPA firms because they offer services like staffing or outsourced IT, things, different revenue streams that a bigger firm might have that a smaller firm doesn't. So they might want to advertise within the community as well. So it's definitely something to think about if that makes sense for your membership base. So once you've sort of thought about when to launch the ad program and you have some data that you can use to sell, you need to think about a pricing strategy. And you want to think about things like, what are you charging for your other ad opportunities? So obviously, if your clients are used to spending $500 on an ad in your magazine, you wouldn't price your community ads at $3,000 because they'd probably have sticker shock, and it just doesn't align with what they're used to spending with you. So you want to think about, how, what you're charging for those other opportunities and how this could fit into some of those existing packages that you have. Also, how much traffic and engagement is your site getting? Obviously, if you just launched your site and traffic's not great, you won't be able to charge as much. Whereas if you have a more of a mature site that's been active for a long time and engagement is high, you might be able to charge more. It's all about supply and demand, obviously. And so with that, you also want to think about, again, your conversations with advertisers. Is there demand there for additional opportunities where you could charge a little bit more because you have so many advertisers interested? I also would recommend leaving some room to increase the price over time. You don't want to start at sort of the max budget that a client might have, because over time your engagement and your click rates will increase. And so you want to leave room to sort of grow the program over time and increase that price. Also think about, should the cost change based on different times of year? So to go back to my tax season example, I certainly would not discount ads in February and March, but I have done flash sales in July and August when I mentioned that the site is a little bit slower. So I'll put a teaser in our sponsor newsletter that we send out saying, if we're sending the newsletter out July 1st and we still have July ad spots available on the community, I'll say, flash sale 20% off, last minute ad spots for this month, that sort of thing. So, it's, instead of sitting empty, that spot at least is getting some revenue generated from it. Another thing is you want to think about opportunities for upsell, the main one being graphic design services. We ultimately decided not to do this because our graphic designers on staff are already sort of, maxed out in terms of their time. But this is a great opportunity if you ever wanted to upgrade or give the opportunity to upgrade, say $100, and our graphics team will create your ad artwork for you. Because a lot of our clients, especially those smaller, mom and pop type of vendors, don't have graphic designers on staff, and so they would be paying to outsource it. So you might as well bring that revenue in if you have the resources yourself. So before I move on, I'll just kind of give you a brief overview of what we ultimately decided with our pricing strategy. We price it based on a per month basis. So we started at $400 a month and we're now up to $600 a month. That is 30 days of placement on the homepage of the site. But most importantly, it's 1 week of placement on the Daily Digest email. The Daily Digest email by far for us gets the most eyes on it. So it's an easy sell. We do not do dedicated emails for vendors. So this is essentially 1 week of a dedicated email for them because of their ad spot. Their ad is the only one on that digest email. So again, for currently $600, they get 30 days of placement on the site and 1 week of placement in the email. So that translates to being able to have 4 advertisers per month because they each get that 1 week in the email. So we could, there have been months we've turned advertisers away, but again, back to the supply and demand, most often when that happens, they just choose another month that has availability. So by limiting it, to 4 advertisers, it really kind of helps build that demand and spread out the revenue throughout the year as well. So that's how we've decided to do it. But I'm happy to talk through that with anyone who has questions as well. Let's see. Sorry, oh, there we go. My slides didn't want to advance again. The next tip I think is probably one of the most successful things that we did, which was we created a dedicated media kit. So the way our community is set up is it's member only, which means when you're having these conversations with advertisers, they cannot log in and see the site for themselves. So that makes it challenging. And I can do live demos and share my screen when I'm in sales calls. But having a dedicated media kit with a lot of visuals, a lot of screenshots where they actually, showed where the ad would be placed, again, highlighting analytics. We included some testimonials from both users of the site and previous advertisers as well. And it was just, especially for like the digest email too, to be able to have a visual of that really helped. And, we also include it in our normal media kit as well. But again, it was just a nice way for them to be able to actually see the site. And one tip I would recommend when you're designing it is to plan for adjustments. So, whether you need to go up on the price or your analytics dramatically change because the site's older now and it's being used more, just be thoughtful with the design so that you can easily adjust as needed. My last tip is to make sure you're continuing to engage after the sale. So this first bullet here, be the bridge between advertisers and members. Just to give you an example, so we have a lot of outsourced IT companies who advertise on our community. So whenever a discussion thread starts in regards to, maybe a member is looking for recommendations for an outsourced IT company, without being too, pushy or salesy, there's ways that you can, as a Mass CPA staff person, can respond to those discussion threads promoting your advertisers. You can also, if you know a member who has worked with that advertiser and is happy, you can message them on the side and ask them to respond to the thread. Hey, I didn't know if you saw this thread looking for recommendations on IT providers. I know you're really happy with XYZ company. What would you mind, responding and telling about your experience working with them? And then, of course, I always make sure to go back to the advertiser and just, without giving the member name or anything like that, just let them know that they're being promoted on the site currently. Another thing that we actually are working on currently is creating a community for advertisers. So as I mentioned earlier, the way our site is set up, they cannot view the site unless they're a member. So we are creating a non-member community specifically for advertisers. What's nice about this is you're giving them the chance to try out the site, but it's also a resource. So they can start building referral sources and getting to know each other. We have a lot of banks that advertise on the site. So if a bank and a outsourced IT company can connect on the site, they can start, recommending clients to each other, and it becomes a resource for them. And when it's time to renew their ad, that's something that they'll look back on and think, wow, they really provided something in return. my other tip is to highlight successes. So if there's an ad that is doing really well, maybe it has the most click rates that you've seen or something like that, make sure you tell the advertiser. Don't just post their ad and that's that, the transaction's done. You know, reach out and say, hey, I just want to let you know your ad looks great. You actually got 20% more clicks than we've ever seen, or whatever it might be. That again is just going to keep them coming back. Obviously, it's about retention and you want repeat advertisers. So really highlighting those successes. The last thing is to gather feedback. Again, don't, stay in communication with them, reach out, ask about their conversion rate. Have they gotten any leads, any qualified leads from their ad? Have any of those leads converted to customers? If they haven't, maybe you adjust where your ad placement is on the site, or maybe you revisit your pricing. So just making sure to gather that feedback and be open to adjusting as needed. And that, I think, is all I have. Not sure if we should take questions or...
Yes, thank you, Kristen. That was wonderful how you distilled your tips into 5. Is there anyone that has any questions for Kristen?
This is Nick. I was curious if you would be able to share your media kit, just so that everybody could see an example of what you've come up with that seems to work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Should I email that to you, Kate, and you can share it, or?
Yes, that's great.
Well, I was curious if you would be able to do it during this meeting, just so it's like in the same record.
Okay, yeah, sure. Let me pull it up. And I'll show you the original media kit back from 2016. So things have changed, obviously, in terms of pricing, and our analytics have certainly increased. One thing I didn't mention is that we started our community on HigherLogix platform, and we transitioned last year to Senji and have been very happy. But you will see on this older media kit that the screenshots might look a little bit different because of that. And I can show you our existing one as well. We also rebranded in the meantime, so we have a different name as well. Can you all see this?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so here we had, the cover page, we had some analytics here, which it's funny to look back on because those have definitely increased. Again, I was saying visuals, so we have screenshots here where it literally shows you where your ad would be, and then we give the breakdown of our old pricing and then what that includes. And we used to have ads on the internal pages as well, which we don't any longer, but again, a homepage ad with their embedded link, a week of placement on the Daily Digest email. And then we had the specs down here as well. So this showed the different options of where their ads could be, again, because they couldn't log in and see it for themselves. A couple different pages of that, and then the digest email showing that as well. And that was it.
That's great. And if you're happy with it, we'll add it to the discussion in the community as well in SenjiU. Brandy has asked whether we can actually look at your community and see where the adverts are placed.
Sure. Let's see. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay. And I should mention we have had one challenge is we've had some pushback from members regarding ad placement and size. So that's something to just keep in mind. Currently our ad spots, we have this one here on the left. We have one here. We actually have 3 here. So I mentioned earlier, we can have 4 per month because we give them each a week in the digest email. But we could do 2 on this side. There's different options, which is nice. With Senji's platform, you know, there are definitely a lot of options. I think the challenge has just been the size, you know, and making sure that the community is still usable and still the highlight of the site. We certainly don't want the ads to get in the way for users. So that's been the only sort of challenge along the way.
Great. Donna's asked, how much time do you spend on this effort? What percentage of total job is it for you?
Well, I mean, now it's very minimal because we have a lot of repeat advertisers. I think when we launched, you know, obviously it was more time consuming, but I wasn't really making dedicated sales calls specifically for the hub. So I'm sorry, the hub is what we call our community. So we, you know, as I was doing my regular sort of check-ins with advertisers or reaching out proactively to new potential clients, I was sort of mixing this into the conversation. So I wouldn't say it necessarily, once we had, you know, the media kit built and the pricing structure, once that initial work was done, it wasn't really adding much. It was just incorporating it into my existing sales conversations. You know, a couple times a year, if I see that there's openings, I might do some individual outreach specifically about the community, but it was more of sort of looking at it holistically and how it fit into our other advertising packages.
Great, thank you. Has anyone got any final questions?
This is Cindy from Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
Kristen, do you have a main site where all your members go to? How is your community put together, I guess, how is it organized?
I'm not sure I fully understand. So we have a main website, masscpas.org, and we link to our community off the main website. But we have, as I meant, we have 11,000 members, so they all technically have access to it unless, you know, they've opted out. Am I answering your?
I guess, you know, I see over to the left, it says My Communities. Do you have various communities they can join, or is it just one main community for everybody?
Oh, I see. So we have different communities, but the open forum, which is sort of the general community for everyone, is definitely utilized the most. I actually have a couple of my colleagues on this call who could probably chime in as well. But yeah, so the open forum is certainly the most active, but we do have dedicated communities for some of our committees and like our board of directors. I mentioned we're starting one specifically for advertisers. So there are, you know, several different communities, but certainly this one is the most active.
And you said that you don't sell ads on those dedicated communities, just the open forum?
Right. Well, just the homepage.
Okay.
So that's been one change from HireLogic to Senji. We used to do internal pages where we could, you know, there's a little bit more of that customization in terms of where we could post ads related to specific communities. Now it's more general, so it's on the homepage, the ad placement.
Thank you.
Sure.
Do you also sell advertising on the CPA website as well?
We do, and it's not nearly as popular. From a revenue perspective, it's probably a quarter of the revenue. With that said, we are launching a new main website in a few weeks, and so I anticipate the revenue from the new site to be better, but I still, our community will definitely outperform our main site.
And why do you think that is?
I think engagement and the Daily Digest email is a huge selling point. You know, if not, most members are not visiting our main website every day, but they are getting the Daily Digest email every day. So those ads, right now, I think we have about 1,700 views on the Daily Digest email every day. And while the monthly traffic of our site might be comparable to that, it's not that repeat, you know, for a whole week, someone is seeing the ADP ad every single day, and they don't even have to log into the site. They just open their inbox. So.
This is Nick. I just wanted to also mention that we can't get true stats on email opens. That is dependent on the client used for opening the email. Some of them don't, for security reasons, allow us to know if somebody has actually opened it. So that is the minimum number, to be clear. It's not like a true number. It is the minimum that we know.
Great. Well, thank you, Kristen. That
Sure.
was really wonderful.